Hey everyone, welcome to a new episode of MICAST. In this episode, we're really excited to welcome Divay Agarwal, head of content at the Mad Virus Studios and creator of the record breaking YouTube horror show Khooni Monday. Khooni Monday is a podcast and YouTube show that brings you the best scary stories about popular horror legends, ghosts, and the most haunted places across the world. Let's dive right into the episode. Hi, I'm Pallavi, co-host of MyCast, and today we are in conversation with Divay Agarwal, head of content at the Mad Virus Studios and the creator of the record-breaking YouTube horror show Khooni Monday.
So, with an experience of over 7 years in the digital entertainment and the media industry, spanning across household names such as Lionsgate, Jio Cinemas, JioTV Plus, and HT Media, he's also, like just as he mentioned, an alum from MICA's batch of 2018. We are so excited to have you here with us, Divay.
Thanks a lot, guys, for having me here. I am super excited just looking at you guys in the new MICA studio and recording everything. It's sort of amazing. Like it's like something that I've always wanted to do back in MICA, but to see it actually happening, it's amazing.
So, I wanted to actually ask you something specific about the horror entertainment because that's your niche. So, horror entertainment in India exists very much only in two spheres, like as of now. So, we have oral storytelling traditions that have been like passed down through the generations, and we have big budget horror films from Bollywood. So, there hasn't really been a mainstream push for horror content in India. So, what was your impetus to create Khooni Monday, which is like a landmark piece of horror media in India as of now?
Right. So you're very right as to how horror has developed so far. So I strongly believe when we started, there were no Bollywood movies also doing horror. There were big Hollywood movies like an Annabelle or a Conjuring doing that, and so there are two forces at play. One is definitely that bhoot pret ki kahaniyan which is being passed on from generation to generation, and the other is the Western influence that is happening through Halloween, through these movies. And now sort of Bollywood is coming into the picture with all these horror comedies and also. So all of that is happening now. Uh, yeah. So again, horror is a difficult genre to sort of crack, and it's a difficult genre to sort of make good content in. And that's what happened. Like I was just searching for uh, I wanted to, one random night, I wanted to listen to horror stories. I searched on YouTube, give me some like good horror stories, but YouTube said we don't have an organized channel for horror. There is no organized, like there are no horror story telling channels back then. So I thought, let's start one, and that's how it happened. And when I decided, I thought. सिर्फ ऑडियो से तो काम बनेगा नहीं, let's do something interesting, and that's how we introduced animation in the horror content, and that was like a first in India, so definitely, but in the world I think also we were one of the first ones to do like horror animated content. So that's how it happened, and yeah, so there is tremendous demand for horror content in India. We've observed that, we've like know that for sure now. And yeah, there is the demand is on the lower side. It is underserved, it is a underserved genre. So yeah, horror is working really well for us.
So I think it's really interesting that you mentioned that yes, while it's been a while that people are making horror in media, there's definitely been a demand for it. Because as we are culturally, we like hearing those bhoot pret ki kahani. Like it has never been a dearth of demand. So I guess what I'm trying to ask you is you obviously had a love for horror as well. And I'd like to know a little bit more about that. Like where from inside you that love for horror came.
Oh wow, oh, okay. uh, so as a child, I was damn scared of horror content. Like, there was a tree in front of my house, which sort of I had started. So I had reached that point wherein I started hallucinating that there might be some things on the tree. कोई लाश ऐसे लटकी होगी, कोई झूल रहा होगा, उल्लू निकल जाएंगे कभी भी, बैट्स का अटैक होगा मेरे ऊपर. So all of that happened, and I was what in class fourth or fifth. that time. And all of that happened, and I was like, oh, okay, this is too much now, this is getting too much. And that line now, that particular line, when you start to share that fear with people now, then that people also around you sort of try to scare you more. So there are always these cousins in family gatherings that try to haunt you more. And it's like, तू मर जाएगा, जो डर गया सो मर गया, जो डर गया सो मर गया. And that sort of stuck in my head कि भाई, one day I decided कि नहीं, अभी हो गया, like it's done. ज्यादा से ज्यादा मर जाऊंगा ना, अब डरूंगा नहीं. So that was the time when I started watching those India ki horror movies. So firstly, what I did was I learned Hanuman Chalisa to be on the safer side of things. Then after learning Hanuman Chalisa, I started watching all these horror movies, which were India ka top horror movies, then IMDb top 50 horror movies and all. So वो रात में बैठ के मैं 2-2 बजे अकेले देखता था. एंड वो ऐसे डर भगाया मैंने. एंड then sort of it started appealing to me. The adrenaline rush sort of started building up. I started loving horror. And there was a time uh, when you feel like कि हाँ हाँ डर को ओवरकम किया है, अभी और एक्सट्रीम पे जाते हैं, नेक्स्ट चीज करते हैं कुछ बड़ी. सो आई सो दिस इज अगेन something I will not recommend doing, but I did it back then. I went to all these haunted places in Delhi and the regions around there in the night, sometimes with a group of people, sometimes alone. And all these graveyards and all, I just went there, sat there for 2-3 hours, just explore the paranormal world and all. Nothing happened, but yeah. So I read about it a lot. I researched about it a lot, and I became a horror freak, man. Like I was a horror fan. So that's how the journey has been. Very very again very flip side did journey in terms of horror. As a kid, I was damn scared of horror, and now horror is something that has been so rewarding for me. And if there is a ghost also today which I see in reality in front of me, I'll be like, no, 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 let's give you some accessories, let's तेरी मुंडी उल्टी कर देते हैं and all. तो थोड़ा तुझे डरावना बनाते हैं. It's not like तू डरावना लग रहा है. So all of that happened.
The way I think your love for horror is shared by a lot of people, which is a testimony to the fact that Khooni Monday has over 3 million subscribers on its channel as of now. So, what are your thoughts on engaging the fans? Because you yourself are a big fan of horror content, and like keeping them like coming like back to your content and your channel every time. Like, what's new that you try to provide each time?
So I think with any form of content, if you are doing a continuous show, you need to be very relevant to be to the modern world or to the modern age. You need to listen to a lot of feedback from your audience. So these two things is something that we do. I'll try to dig deeper. So how do we listen to our users is basically we go through all the comment section. Then there is a community post section, there is Instagram. We sort of do a quiz in a sense that which is the topic that you want us to cover next. We'll give them options sometimes, or they'll just come comment something or the other. And we get a lot of information about different legends also from our audience, that this is something that is happening in Japan, and this is a popular horror legend. So for example, there were a lot of comments when we had initially started the channel. There were a lot of comments to cover Kochi Sake Una, which is a Japanese horror legend, which I didn't know about. And that video, when we did it, it has 7 million views on our YouTube channel. So when you listen to the people, I think again that sort of rewards you. So this is one way. And you do some talk shows on maybe a Discord or or some other platform, and you keep interacting with the audience. That's very important. And being relevant, I think uh, there are two ways how you can be relevant on YouTube. One is obviously you should cash on the trends which are there. Whatever topical content is happening, you should be a part of that. So we Diwali had gone, we did a Diwali horror story, we did a Raksha Bandhan horror story. We've even done a Battlegrounds India horror story. So anything that becomes relevant in the market, or being talked about, you should also probably talk about it with your own spin. And the second bit, how you can be relevant, is through a lot of different collaborations. Uh, there are some creators, or there are some influencers who are being talked about, or whose content is doing really well. So what we did was we started this property on Khooni Monday called Horror Kisse, where we invited different influencers to share their horror stories with us, and we created an animated story out of it. So we invited Triggered Insan, as one of the biggest like YouTubers, you could say. So similarly, you have to do a lot of collaborations at work, and that sort of keeps the relevancy going.
Speaking of collaborations, which I think leads very well into our next question, I think I would call this a collaboration between brands. So, Khooni Monday on YouTube has a sister show on Spotify, which is an exclusive and original podcast series called The Horror Show by Khooni Monday. And I think the release schedule is such that if the episode goes live on Monday, I think by Friday or so, the audio release happens on Spotify, if I'm not wrong. And ever since its release on Spotify, the horror show, it hasn't dropped off the Spotify charts. Like, I believe it debuted at 12, then went up to 2, and then stayed at the top for like, and has stayed at the top consistently still since then. And so podcasts, they are still relatively new in the entertainment sphere in India. It's a very evolved audience. It doesn't have as much reach so far, at least from what we can tell. It's taking a while for people to really get into it, and even brands are only lately starting to pay attention to it. But I want to actually understand your process here. So can you tell us a little bit about how a show that was so, like, I guess, reliant on its animation to also create the impact that it was creating, how was that adapted for an audio format where you can't see anything at all?
Right. So, first of all, very well researched. I am glad that you know the trending charts and how we progress through it. Uh, so, I think there is a mix of two things. I'll probably tell you how we went about it. Uh, but before that, I'll just answer your question as to how we've adapted it for the audio format bit. Uh, we started out, when I was writing these horror stories, I always wrote them for a audio first experience, and later on we animated. So that has always been the process. Like, so I have always sort of listened to the story while writing, or after writing, after doing the VO, that is it making sense if somebody is just listening to it. So that has always been a process, because again, coming from a content business point of view, like a business person point of view, I always knew that once we are creating content, we can syndicate it to many, or license it to different people. So I started with that approach. What's different and what's sort of super interesting is how you play with the sound effects, with the music, because audio gives you gives the listener also an opportunity to be as imaginative with the content that he's listening to, as one can possibly be. And the second thing is, he can also have a very immersive experience because of the whole sound design and the SFX, or whether there is a door opening, or a knock at the door, or some streaky laughter that's happening. So those things sort of really add to the audio. And I'll also touch upon why we are doing this well probably on Spotify. So there are two things. One is, so we offer a bonus episode every Friday, which is an extra thing apart from our YouTube stories. So our audience is listening. They want more and more stories, but animation is not possible. Uh, uh, like, animation requires a lot of time and effort, and that's why just the audio part is comparatively easier to execute. And the audience always wants more, and they get more on Spotify apart from our YouTube channel, and that's why a lot of our audience is coming on to Spotify. And the second reason primarily is because horror, as a horror storytelling and audio, are a match made in heaven, for the reasons I explained you. So I think that really sort of pushes the podcast up the ladder. And yeah, you're right. We've been trending number one on Spotify for the last 32 days straight. So that's a big thing.
So TMV also does some great animated work for very intriguing brands in India, such as
Right.
Casio, Z Music, HDFC Live. So when these brands come to you for creative work, how do you combine their client, like the client brief, with your creative vision of the work?
So what we do as at TMV is we are trying to. So obviously we've learned that in MICA, we've learned that while doing our jobs, me and my partner both uh, uh, sort of get a sense as to where the business is heading and what the brand actually wants to do. So what is the business objective and what best could be done for their business objective in animation is something that we try to find the perfect or the sweet spot to. And speaking specifically for animation, I think a lot of MBA graduates or management graduates or educated people don't know much about animation. So anything that we are doing with them is sort of new for them, to be very honest. Uh, so yeah, so that's how we have been approaching things. We want to solve a particular problem whenever a brand comes up with a brief, and so that's pretty much it. I think I would uh, just revolve that thing around problem solving. If you are able to solve the problem, I think everything sort of happens. And obviously we use some MICAN models or some MICAN gyan that we have learned to sort of pitch those things. So yeah, that always happens.
So I'm glad that you brought up Micah, because before we
Yeah,
move into our next segment, we have a question around that.
right,
So we want to reminisce with you a little bit about your Micah days. What's something
right.
that you hold on to from Micah as you're continuing to make waves in the entertainment industry?
MICA, I think two things that really stand out for me, which I tell every person who wants to do an MBA also, is there are two things. One is the kind of approach to things which Micans are ingrained or have is to look out of the box, which you would have heard so many times, right? You've been told, like every Mican is told to think or do things which are different and have never been done before. So if you're thinking in that approach, you tend to crack newer things. You tend to take more risks, and more risk obviously means more rewards. So that's something which I feel sets apart MICA from other B schools. And the other thing is the kind of diversity uh, while taking all these candidates as MICAN students that the admission process sort of brings in is absolutely amazing, because I've interacted s- fro- I've interacted with so many people from so many different fields, and also different regions. So there is this absolute lovely diversity of people, where one can know so much about uh, a lot of cultures, a lot of fields, a lot of knowledge exchanges always happening, and it's wonderful to be part of that diversity, which probably I don't think many B schools have.
Awesome. And speaking about the students of Micah, I would actually like to take us into our next segment. And
Okay.
I would also encourage our listeners to check out our Instagram, because we'll be posting behind the scenes of this recording as well. And we are very lucky today to have Tanmay and Sudhanshu from the Junior MICAST team in the studio with us. And they've
Right.
brought a few questions with themselves that they'd like to ask you. So I'll just hand over the mic to our junior team.
Sure.
All right. Hi, Divay. This conversation has been so insightful. But we've spoken a lot about the creative aspects and your ideation process. I want to ask you about TMV, and I understand that it's your brainchild and you've set it up from scratch. When while talking about these creative endeavors, we often neglect the business aspect of it, right? You're trying to create a scalable, sustainable business and monetize it as you go forward. What were some challenges you faced while setting up TMV? And what do you think our audience can learn from them?
The biggest challenge that we initially faced was getting newer clients. So without any portfolio, how do you go ahead and pitch some clients is something that is obviously a challenge. Sometimes we actually adapted the fake it till you make it approach, and that sort of worked for us. And then obviously you tend to do a lot of networking. You should have decent enough contacts. You should always give space for knowledge, for reading, for learning what things are happening in the industry, where the industry is going. And when you have that conversation with people, or that's, I think, you also get to know a lot of different people in that process. So so you tend to find the right people who might come in handy and give you work. So that always sort of happens. And other challenges, I think, so we've been actually lucky. We've like the highest growth that happened for us was during COVID, because we could do side hustles with two laptops opening at the same time. And one was the company laptop and one was the side hustle thing. And a lot of shoots were not happening that time, so a lot of people were relying on animation. The challenge is, again, are you able to capitalize on the opportunity that you are seeing right now? So you have to take quick actions. You have to do hard work. There is no escaping hard work, and you have to be very consistent with what you're doing. And I think, in today's world, after COVID and everything, the biggest thing is time management. How you are managing your time, because there are a lot of people who keep complaining, but they don't do anything about it. So if you want to do something, you do that. So Reliance has taught me this really well, that fail fast, succeed fast. Keep doing, be at it. Like, keep doing things, keep trying out different things. You'll get there, or you'll improve. So that's, I think, pretty much it. Now the biggest challenge that we are facing is how to expand, how to get the best resource in the market who would sort of uh, take TMV forward.
Hi, Divay. Sudhanshu here. So, the answer you gave, it was really insightful, and I'm just loving this session with you. But I'm going to attack you with a question that has been bugging me since childhood.
Okay.
And so, my question is in general about animation in our country. And I know
Yeah.
you're an expert in that industry. So when will India get its first Dragon Ball Z, Naruto, One Piece series like things? I don't know why we are still lacking at that level of animation content for Indian audience. And I know we are not lacking in the tech or telling the stories we have.
So you're absolutely right, Sudhanshu. A lot of Pixar movies, or Dragon, Game of Thrones, or Jungle Book work comes to India. Like 70 or 80% is outsourced to Indian artists, which are working endlessly. So we absolutely have no dearth of talent. It's only the intention that is lacking. Right now, what is happening, if you've made a Motu Patlu, or if you've made a Chota Bheem, you just want to keep monetizing that again and again and again. And nobody is thinking out of the box to make a Dragon Ball Z, to make a Archer. So all of that is not happening currently, to not make a Love, Death and Robots. But yeah, that's why I'm here. And you'll see something from me in 5 years down the line, definitely.
Okay, we are looking forward to it, Divya, really. So we'll move on to our last segment, which is, I think, our like the segment we have most fun recording, which is the rapid fire segment. So we'll just ask you a question and you don't get time to think, and you have to just give us the answer
Oh,
that comes to your head first. Okay, so the first question is your favorite Khooni Monday episode that you would recommend our audience to watch.
oh, it's the clown episode one right now. So you have to listen to that. It's something that we've really worked hard on, and I feel it's going to blow your minds.
The big question, format
Yeah.
battle. Is horror better in audio or in video?
Woohoo! Uh, I think audio.
Okay. A creator you take inspiration from.
These days I'm taking a lot of inspiration from Bhuvan Bam, how he's sort of curved uh, his journey, and how carved his journey, sorry, and how he's managing to do all these big ticket OTT shows, which is Taza Khabar coming on Hotstar. Then there is one with Amazon. So he's really he really came out of the whole YouTube influencer rat race sort of a thing, and he's carving his own way out, and it's superb what he's doing.
If not horror, what other genre would you like to explore when it comes to creating content?
Romance.
Okay. And finally, your favorite spot at Mica.
It was the MICA studio. I loved to be in the studio in the piece and just interacting with all the people from nearby Telav and Guma villages. But I guess I need to come and check out the new studio that you guys have. I think it's going to be my favorite spot when I come there now.
We're always a little bit in competition with Maika Wani, so controversial answer, but we'll take it. I think we had a great time getting to get all these frank answers from you about all our questions about what you do. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Pallavi, thank you Kasturi, thank you Tanmay, and thank you Sudhanshu. It was a wonderful experience recording for the MICAST podcast, and I'll tell absolutely everybody in my batch and different people to check this episode out.